I'm Patsy Thompson, and just like so many other quilters, I am completely seduced by pincushions. I mean, they are just so small and cute, and they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, so I'm constantly making them, even though I don't need any more. Even better, pincushions are a really great gift for anyone who sews, and you can create them pretty quickly, so they make wonderful homemade gifts that your friends will really cherish. Today I want to show you how easy it is to make felted wool pincushions. Now these also come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but honestly the basics of how to create them is pretty standard.
Now you'll need a few supplies to get you started. The first is soap, and I just used this cheap liquid soap that I bought at the dollar store. You'll also need some wool roving or wool batting. You'll want to get an assortment of colors because your pincushion will look better if you can blend lots of colors into one another. Packages of wool roving are available on our website if you click on Quilting Supply Shop and then click on Felting Supplies in the drop-down menu. The last thing you'll need are some old pantyhose or knee-highs. You'll see that these will come in very handy in the second phase of our felted pincushion adventure. Oh, and one last thing. You'll either need access to a sink or a bowl of warm water. Now let's get started. You'll start by taking a wad of wool roving or dyed wool batting, and you'll add some soap and hot water and then just start working it. What you see me doing here is merely rubbing the soap into the wool, getting up a nice lather and kind of rubbing my wool to get all the tiny furry barbs of wool to insinuate themselves into one another. This process is called wet felting. In essence, we are stimulating the wool through agitation, lubrication, and heat, and this is causing all the little hairs in the wool to kind of bond or lock with other hairs in the wool. As you continue to do this, you'll see that the size of your blob will shrink, and that makes sense because the wool fibers are locking into one another. As you work, you'll start adding new wisps of wool into the blob, and again, every time you do this, your goal will be to agitate the wool so that all of these pieces insinuate themselves into one another. Be careful not to add huge wisps of wool all at once because you want to get all parts of this nice and wet, and you'll have trouble doing that if you're adding really large wisps at a time. Know that as you keep adding these wisps, they're covering up earlier layers, so if you have some favorite colors that you want to make sure show in that final pincushion, make sure you add those colors in the last few wisps. How large should you make this? That decision is all up to you. I've found that I really like small wool felted pincushions to take with me to classes because I can get a lot of pins into them, but they don't take up much room in my sewing kit. Other times I like larger felted pincushions because I've positioned them in places where I need tons and tons of pins. If you're new to this, I'd make a few different sizes so you can figure out what works best for you. Remember, if you make a size that doesn't suit you, those make great gifts for anyone who loves to sew or quilt. Whatever size pincushion you're striving for, know that in the final phase of this project, shrinkage will occur, so make sure that your baseline size is larger than your final desired size. Once you're happy with the size of the baseline pincushion, you're ready to prepare it for the aggressive agitation phase. Take an old pair of pantyhose or an old knee-high and gently place the pincushion into the base of it. Tie a knot to secure it inside, and you're ready for the next phase. Now, if you're making multiple pincushions at the same time, repeat this same step in the same knee-high, but remember to place a knot in between each pincushion. If you leave this step out, the pincushions will felt into one another. You can add as many pincushions to a knee-high or an old piece of pantyhose as it can hold. Place your pantyhose filled with pincushions into your dryer. Because heat is a big part of this wet felting process, I'm placing my heat on the cotton setting, which is the hottest my dryer will get. Now there's no golden rule about how long to dry these, so I usually set my timer for around 20 minutes to remind me to check on them. If they're still damp to touch on the outside, I'll just keep extending my time again and again. Once you turn on the dryer, Expect to hear those pincushions bouncing all around your dryer. Nothing's wrong. This is what you want to hear. Remember, wet felting means using heat, agitation, and moisture to make those wool barbs lock into one another. Once they're done, you'll remove them from the dryer. Now, one thing you'll notice right off the bat is that the felt has kind of locked itself into the pantyhose. Don't worry about that. Gently pull the pantyhose away from the felt, and once the two are separated, cut into the pantyhose to remove the pincushion. Now, notice that this is smaller than what was originally placed into the dryer, and again, that's because shrinkage occurs during this heavy agitation phase. If your pincushion has shrunk to the point that it's too small for you to use, there's no cause for alarm. Just go back to the sink and using hot water and soap, add more layers of wool roving or batting, and then go back and place it into the dryer in another pair of pantyhose. This really is a very foolproof method because you can always add to a pincushion. And sometimes your pincushion shape may not come out as you desire. Remember, the very center of this is still damp, so just squeeze it back into a ball shape if it's become an oblong shape and you're desiring more of a circular ball. I love these pincushions, and needles go in and out of them really easily. The only downside to them is that because they're so light, they frequently lift right off the table when you remove a pin, and that's a nuisance. I get around that by gluing a small circle of scrap wood to the base of my pincushion. This provides a nice flat base so they sit perfectly and won't roll around, and it's enough weight that my pincushion stays put when I pull out my needle. If you choose, you can even clamp the pincushion to the base to hold them tightly together as the glue dries.
Now, because these pincushions are really thick, the very insides of them aren't completely dry when you pull them out of the dryer, so let them sit around for 3 to 4 days before you start using them, and that way you can avoid getting any rust on your pins.
Now go forth and give this technique a try.